call this meeting to order. What is it, 7:05 p.m. September 14, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. We'll open it up now. First off, I'd like to welcome Mike Deeks, the newest Planning Commission member from, actually the newest alderman too, on the city council, Planning Commission, take the place of Jimmy Sykes. Great time I think we're going to have with Mike, because he's a long-time real estate guy here and volunteer over the city of Jacksonville from many different areas, wears many different hats. So he's got a lot of information. Interesting too perspective from Mike is going to be that he's from the people to the property side. That's the way real estate is. And so from Planning Commission, he has a different perspective. And we know that we're from the property to the person and the city side. So he's going to have some great introspection for us. And I sure want to thank you for coming on board and being part of the commission there. Mike?
Thank you. Look forward to it. Love to do everything for Jacksonville. Anything I can do to serve Jacksonville is a pleasure. Been here since 1970 and looking forward to it.
All right, Mike. As everybody looked over their minutes, because while you're taking some time to look over, I just want to make a couple opening remarks. Whenever we do make motions, let's make sure that we make them in a way that has a very logical sense. It's very structured motion, so the city clerk can write them down. And there's only one time that the Planning Commission can ever get into trouble, and that's if we make a ruling that's arbitrary, capricious, or irrational. And those definitions really kind of mean unrestrained or autocratic in use of authority for being arbitrary. And that's when we would act like tyrants here, trying to usurp authority over somebody as a group. And capricious would be unaccountable changes of mood or bad behavior. So we're very logical in our steps, and we're very leveled in our responses. And even in the point to where we have conversations and debates between each other, so let's just make sure that it's always reasonable and logical, and it's very responsible. Those two standards are what any appeals from what we do here would be coming, they'd be looking back on how we handle that and how we use rational logic in our motions. In other words, what we do is we state the reason for a motion, or we state the reason against a motion to deny. And if we're doing anything to deny, I would really make it really stress upon the commission members to make sure when you state a motion to deny, to give logical reasons why. Logical reasons have nothing to do with emotion, demographics, people groups, or anything, but it has to do with use of land and how it adversely affects the city of Jacksonville, people in the city of Jacksonville. And always remember that people are entitled to their opinions, and we are required to deal with property issues and the effect on the welfare and growth of the city of Jacksonville. That's just my opening remarks. At this time, I ask Sister Vivian, you want to open us in a word of prayer?
Sure, thank you. Father God, we thank you today for blessing us to be here. We thank you for your protections, how you protected us today. Father God, we ask that you be glorified in this meeting tonight. We ask that you lead us and guide us through this meeting. We thank you, we praise you, and we honor you. In Jesus' name.
Amen. All right, ask the clerk to do roll call.
Councilmember Deeds,
Here.
Commissioner Montgomery,
Here.
Commissioner Hall,
Present.
Commissioner Britton, Commissioner Twitty,
Here.
Commissioner Brown is absent, Commissioner Bolden is absent, and Chairman Stroud is present. I have two absent, so in one open position.
All right, so we have a quorum, and thank you everybody for attending. And so at this time, has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes? Are there any additions or corrections of the minutes as noted or as read?
Motion to accept.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the minutes as submitted. Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion second to accept the minutes as accepted as submitted. Is there anybody disagree? Or all in favor of accepting the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All right. we'll open up the public hearing at this time.
Mr. Chairman, could we do the public hearing and go straight to preliminary?
Okay, see you on the
Our
way.
petitioner's not here yet.
Okay, all right. So let's go to the request to approve plats. Everybody, if you'd open your Notting Hill, this was last time, the one that was removed from our agenda, and it was called Sam Settlement. But we're in this particular now, it's called Notting Hill. You'll notice it's divided in half. So we have the preliminary plat before us. And I guess, Aaron, oh yes, your mic's undone. You want to speak to where we're at on this preliminary plat and what you want done here?
Sure, yes, thank you. So this is the first phase of what we are calling Notting Hill subdivision now, previously Sound Settlement. It is basically the front half. There's a ridge that kind of separates this property, and so this is the front part of the ridge. You know, we have submitted it to the water department, to the sewer department, and it will go to the health department. And as far as I know, the only issue that really is outstanding with this piece of property is when it got annexed. We were under the assumption that it would get annexed as an R1. It got annexed as an R0, which affects the lot width and the lot depth. So we are requesting that it go to an R1 because the plat that you have before you is based off an R1 zoning, not an R0 zoning. And I'll try to answer any questions.
Okay, commissioners, you have any questions?
Mark, this is Ryan. On phase one, how many entrance or exits?
There's one entrance, one exit.
Okay. Melissa, I see you're here with us. Do you want to help us with, we had a meeting on Wednesday, I think it wasn't last Wednesday, Wednesday before last, about this as it was Sound Settlement. And Melissa, do you want to input?
Yes, I would like to correct Aaron's statement on the zoning when it was brought in. Basically, when it was annexed in, there was not a zoning designated. So the way our code reads, if it's not designated by the city, then the owner can state how they want it zoned. So by this meeting, they are requesting R1. It's not a formal rezoning request at all. It's just stating and acknowledging in a public forum that it's R1. And that is stated on the plat, on the revised plat that they submit. And as far as the entrance road, there is just one entrance and exit, but we have asked them to widen it to 35 foot. And that was at the request of the fire marshal. So in case of a incident that might be blocked for some reason on one side or the other, there's room to get around. So it's a wider entrance. Everything else is pretty simple as far as requests that we've asked them to make, and that can all be handled at staff level. We're good with a contingent approval. The sewer has formally approved it. The water is looking at it on their next meeting on the 23rd, I believe, of this month. And of course, that would be part of the contingency.
All right. And I got a question too, Aaron, is that when we had the meeting on two Wednesdays ago, and it was Sam Settlement, it was generally agreed that you guys would figure out a way to widen that road on the input. So I'm a little bit distressed that we get it to preliminary, and this shouldn't even be a contingency. This should be something that was already figured out, and we could work on the other contingencies later. But why wasn't the road widened prior to, submitting this preliminary? on phase one?
Well, the road has been widened out for the 35-foot that Melissa spoke about. I wasn't at the meeting, so I can't really tell you why or why not. All I know is I got an email from Melissa today that I saw, and I have widened that entrance to 35 foot now. The right-of-way is the same. We didn't have to change the right-of-way, so that didn't affect any of the lot width or lot depths. All I did was went in and widened the street.
Okay, and then if we give the request to an R1, will you keep the lots that are at R0 right now still at R0?
All the lot widths and depths that you see right now are going to be what the lot widths and depths are.
Okay, all right. And so I didn't quite catch the reason the entrance being widened. So you widened the road, but you didn't affect any of the property distances. So how did that happen? How did that work?
Well, I mean, so a 35-foot street will fit within a 50-foot right-of-way. So I widened the road to 35 feet and put it within the 50-foot right-of-way, as opposed to having a 60-foot right-of-way for the first 100 feet and then go down to a 50-foot right-of-way. I made everything fit within that 50-foot right-of-way, because all of our utilities are in an easement. So, I mean, with 35 foot, you've got basically 7.5 feet from the back of the curb to the property line on each side.
Okay, all right. So Melissa, then that's agreeable. That's kind of like what we were talking about at the meeting.
Yes, we're perfectly fine with that. It all fits within the right of way that they've got shown. We're good with that, with the additional easements that they've already had shown beyond that right of way.
Okay, all right. Okay, great. Hey, Commissioner, do you have any other input?
With this one driveway in and out, and then if we go on to phase two, is that going to be enough for future?
Yeah, it was initially at Sam Settlement, and that's what we were talking about, this whole project being off of that one entrance. And so they just divided it in half. So yeah, it's set up for the whole thing, that one entrance.
Still, it's going to be the one entrance.
That's one entrance, yeah. And the fire marshal was here last time, and he definitely had a problem with it being narrow. So if Melissa said it's okay with that, then that's okay. That was his big problem with that. And there is going to be on the next phase, with what I understand is that there's going to be a turnaround, not the cul-de-sac, but there's another road back there that's going to have to turn around. So that'll come up in the next phase. Have any other input?
You stated all that correctly. The fire marshal was fine with the widened road at the entrance for the number of lots. And when we get into the second phase, there will be a temporary turnaround at that dead end street, but that will be addressed at the next phase.
So, Commissioner, do you want to entertain a motion at this time? What the motion basically would be to accept the preliminary plat for Notting Hill subdivision phase 1, and with the zoning at an R1 and the street at 35 foot. So, anybody want? Don't take my thought. Take a motion.
I make a motion to approve that.
With the contingency?
Yes.
There you go. All right, Mike. We have a second.
With the 35 foot entrance, yeah, with the wide enough area, that's why.
Okay, City Clerk, do you have all that?
Yes, sir.
We've got the greatest city clerk in the world.
I know.
I tell you, that's awesome. Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the plat with the contingencies of the R1 being made an R1, which really isn't a contingency, but then street 35. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. Look at that, Aaron. You did a great job. Okay, at this time, let's go back to item number 4 on the agenda. And that'll be a rezoning. It's at 517 Gregory Street. It's right behind Pepito's and that Best Western. Actually, it's over by Commissioner Hall, around that area. It'll be a rezoning from an R3 to a C3. And the petitioner is Joe Douglas. I'm glad to have you here today.
Thank you. Sorry about being late.
That's okay. You want to, is that microphone?
Start working.
Probably not. I was.
Try it, Joe.
Grab this mic at the end and just turn it out.
Yeah.
It's my regular
fine.
use.
We'll
Test,
have-
test.
Not that
It's
one.
right here.
Oh,
Here on the
okay.
dais.
So I'll open the public hearing.
You working?
Okay, it's working.
Turn it on if you would.
He's on. I get the grill on.
Yeah.
All right, so let me open the public hearing this time, and to speak for it will be Petitioner Joe Douglas.
Okay. What we have is the highway work that's going on, the overpass. So there's 2 pieces of property there, and looking for the highway department that I happen to own both of those. The C3 one is closer to the restaurant. And the R3 is
Behind it.
yes, on the west side of it. And to get to the C3, because I'm be losing 2 driveways because they're too close to the intersection, and they won't allow Bailey Boulevard just to continue across for driveway. That would be too easy. But anyway, so to get to the C3 lot, once the work commences, they'll be driving across the R3 lot. So it's not appropriate, I didn't think, to drive across the R3 lot to get to the C3 lot. And so that's what we're.
Okay. All right, is there anybody else to speak to the rezoning issue on favor of?
Well, that's what to start that construction of the overpass, do we know? 2018. 2018?
Yeah.
I thought, man.
The first meeting was 2014, actually.
Okay. So on time, sounds like,
Yeah.
All right.
on schedule.
Is there any other public input to the R3 to C3 change? All right, not hearing any. Is there anybody to speak against the rezoning from an R3 to a C3? All right, hearing none, then I'll close the public hearing at this particular time. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Douglas about this proposal?
I don't have any questions. I think it makes personally, really
good
good
sense.
sense to do it this way.
It's no
I mean,
brainer.
it's a no-brainer because
Yeah.
it makes the area and the lots a whole lot more usable.
Sure.
For a lot better utility use of the property.
Otherwise, it's just dead space.
Yeah.
You got a landlocked lot.
Yeah,
You can't get that.
Yeah, nobody really can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't really do that anyway, but we should
Right.
do that. We
Right.
should be able to make sure it's beneficial for
Sure.
us and him.
And I like no-brainer decision.
That's what I'm limited to.
All right, is there any other questions or input from the commissioners? All right, I entertain a motion at this particular time.
I'd like to move to accept the rezoning.
Okay. Got a motion to accept the rezoning from R3 to C3. Do I have a second?
All right, second.
All right. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Hearing none, then the rezoning passes. Thank you much. Thank you for coming down, Mr. Douglas.
Again, sorry about being late. And,
You're fine.
not necessarily wearing my best, so keep her down.
You're fine.
When I
I've
can
been
break
working.
in.
Hey, Mark, question on the other plot. What, do we have an idea on what the lots are gonna be selling for? I'm just, there's a
No,
gray area in them. I just wonder if they have some idea on what
I don't think,
the land cost is.
hey, Melissa, has there been any kind of building permits or activity for those lots that you know of?
No, there hasn't. He's just trying to get it to where it's not landlocked when the widening starts and the new overpass is done. He's trying to salvage that C3 property.
Yeah, I knew that. I was talking about the other subdivision.
Oh, you're talking about,
Notting Hills, because we need more residential subdivisions, to bring more revenue.
Oh,
Just one-
yeah, no, we haven't had any building permits for that. This is preliminary.
How many lots is gonna be there? Do you know in that phase one? How many lots?
Phase 1 is 35. The total lots is 80 something.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good, pretty development.
Are all of them gonna be?
What kind of restrictions as far as square footage all that good stuff going out?
Hold on just a second. Let me get that pulled up.
all right. Any other input from the commissioners at this time?
Oh, she was checking square footage for me.
You what?
She was checking square footage. I was kind of curious. Square
Oh,
footage, yeah, Melissa.
Yeah, the minimum is 1,400 square feet. The developer had said that he's looking towards making this similar to Base Meadows.
Okay. I got you.
That's a good idea. That's good.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece of property. It'll be some pretty lots.
And it does have that road when we get down to the next phase, the road going over into what we know. Yeah, it's gonna go around that church. Okay. All right, well, hearing none, if there's no building permits or anything, is there any announcements before we adjourn? All right, then I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, got a second? I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
All right.